All right, everybody, and welcome back to Show Choir Nation. This is the flagship podcast of the Homeroom Show Choir Network. I'm your host, William. I'm alongside my other host, Ethan, and Ava is our wonderful guest tonight. Ava, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've got this limited edition Homeroom Show Choir sweatshirt, which may or may not be available for public consumption in the very near future. You'll have to stay tuned on that. Ethan, we've got another week of show choir, you being the knowledge man, me being the take man. How has last weekend left you feeling?
Excited. I'm super excited, Will. I mean, the fact that we have all these amazing choirs performing again is unreal. We're stepping into the real battle here this next week. How many show choir comps on top of the head do you think we have this week?
I think we have about 18.
18 comps this week. That is insane. We just wrapped up some really good ones that kept people's eyes on all week long. I wasn't able to hop on any live streams, but I wish I was. I forgot who it was, but I heard there was a really good one out there that people were tuning into one of these stacked competitions. But I'm ready to cover it. I'm ready to go over the results, and this might tell what happens throughout the whole season. So I'm ready to get the ball rolling.
Absolutely. And as we have more choirs competing, that means that we also have more articles on homeroomshowchoir.com. The editor-in-chief of this site would never miss an opportunity to brag on his staff. Ava just had a great Iowa season preview that dropped late last week. Just in the past couple days, we also had an Ohio season preview drop. We have recaps coming of some of the competitions that happened last weekend. All of that content you can find by going to www.homeroomshowchoir.com. That is the place where you can find all the latest and greatest show choir news from across America. And Ethan, you were saying that you thought people were tuning into one live stream or another. We are going to start off with a competition that does have a live stream. But right before we get there, if you want to comment, please comment. We will do our best to share comments and interact with them on the show. And also, this is streaming on YouTube. So if you want to either give the stream a like or subscribe to the channel, that way that you'll be notified. We keep a pretty regular schedule every Monday in the evening, but if you want to be notified whenever the next Show Choir Nation episode is, feel free to drop a subscription to the channel. We will head to America's heartland, Iowa, the heartland of Iowa, Des Moines, the suburbs of Des Moines, I guess, technically, because Des Moines Christian School is located, I believe, just outside in the suburbs. The results of Des Moines Christian Illumination from this past Saturday. Top step of the podium, best vocals and best band, Waukee Millennium. First runner-up, Cedar Rapids, Washington, Momentum. Second runner-up and best choreography, Indianola, Side 1. Third runner-up, Dallas Center Grimes, Momentum. Fourth runner-up, Norwalk Sound Revolution. And fifth runner-up, Xavier Exhilaration. Ava, you are the Central Iowan among us. First couple hits when looking at the results of Des Moines Christian.
Yeah, there really is. I wasn't surprised at all to see Waukee walk away with the win. They have been great. They've always been great. They took a couple years of the hit after the split with Waukee Northwest, but I really think that they're on the up and up again this season, especially under new direction. Kind of surprised about Indianola taking best choreography, but I thought that they had a really exceptional show, especially for it being January 11th. And yeah.
Of course, I think Indianola is a choir that Ethan and I spent a fair bit of time talking about last season on this podcast. And just kind of from an outsider's point of view, I was kind of circling Indianola and being like, okay, this is kind of like the year where they stepped it up last year, took the first 2 wins in program history. How are they going to back it up this year? And they start the return tour with taking best choreography off Waukee and Cedar Rapids, Washington, and the rest of the field. So I think that's a phenomenal start. Ethan, anything that you notice?
Yeah, staying on Indianola, I have short-term memory loss, so I do not remember, so I'd have to go back and watch our past episode. But I'm pretty sure I gave them this caption or one of the captions because I knew that last year they were super good and they were turning the page with Miles Finn. I think they're continuing to do so. I think they're a fantastic program on the rise. Congratulations, Waukee. This is what we thought was going to happen. But there were some chirps every now and then. You hear whispers if they could do it with their new director, Tony Dam. So congrats to them for holding strong. Cedar Rapids, Washington, amazing outing, getting second place. And then Dallas Center Grimes. They're also a program that's slowly creeping into my book as one of those groups that is just outside that top tier. Continuing to rise within themselves, always in the middle of the pack, but always battling. Those are my takeaways from this competition, and some of them are competing next weekend. So
Yeah, I just want to touch on DCG as well. Dallas Center Grimes is a school, when we look at the macro level, that has grown exponentially within the past decade or 15 years or so. And the effects of that have really been seen in their show choir program as well. Not only have they moved up from that 3A division to that top 4A division in Iowa, but they are starting to become a player in these competitions. I think a lot of people, myself included, just kind of slotted them in at the bottom of the 6 4A groups that were going to be at Des Moines Christian and be like, yeah, like they're going to be good enough to make finals, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to make a lot of noise besides that. And to their credit, momentum absolutely shut me up. It just gets so hard for me. And Ava, maybe you can touch on this, where it seems like every year we're trying to cram 1 or 2 more groups into like the good category in central Iowa. And I just don't know how much room there is for too many groups to be considered good in the Des Moines area.
Yeah, it definitely, the bar for show choir is raising every year, and every year as you it just gets bigger. Like, it becomes more of a thing. There are new groups added every single year, and it just gets harder and harder to distinguish the good from the great and the great from the exceptional. So it is really interesting to see how different groups are moving around, and it feels like everyone just keeps getting better and better, which is really cool to see.
Awesome. And we'll move to the other side of Iowa. We'll move to the Mississippi River on the eastern side, and the Muscatine River City Showcase. The results of this one: Prairie, the Ambassadors, taking home Best Vocals and the overall win. El Paso Gridley Modulations, coming over from Illinois, second place and Best Choreography. Third place and Best Band, Pella Acapella. Fourth place, Iowa City Fourth Avenue Jazz Company. Fifth place, North Polk Nexus. Sixth place, Western Dubuque Fifth Avenue. Ava, I'll toss this one again to you as the Iowan on this podcast. Which of these placements stand out to you as ones that you can learn a lot from as we head into the rest of the season?
I think that Prairie taking the Grand Championship so soon is definitely a little bit unexpected. I mean, I know that people are going back and forth between them and El Paso Gridley, and as a late ad, you kind of don't know what to expect. You don't know why they changed last minute, and I do think that the caption split is interesting because it shows just how close the competition could have been, that it really could have gone either way. But it's also really great to see the groups that fell below them, Pella, second runner-up, as a 3A school. I know we've been talking about them a lot, but they are doing really great things. I thought Iowa City High really came out with a spectacular show, even though they placed fourth. And North Polk, being only their third year as a program and making finals and getting fifth overall, I think is really great for them. And I think that's a great way for them to start off their season, with just that little boost of confidence hanging with the big 4A people.
Absolutely. I think that's great analysis. Ethan, you are a noted Heath Guimar fan on the podcast. Heath Guimar adding another Best Choreo trophy to his imaginary trophy case at his residence. El Paso representing Illinois. Well, anything you can take away from that, or any of the Iowa choirs here?
Yeah, so personally, I think El Paso came into this one not really knowing what was going to happen. Like you said, Prairie late jump. I believe they were at like Onalaska or Des Moines Christian. Onalaska, yeah. So you didn't really know what was going to happen here. El Paso knew they were running for one of the top placements. I know that they are probably a little disappointed in themselves just because I know how Illinois runs. But again, they are on that rise. And the fact that they got Best Choreography here with Heath Guimar is amazing. They're going up against some amazing choreographers at Muscatine. So great showing for El Paso and Illinois. They keep going strong. These other placements, it's kind of wonky because we did a lot of talking about Iowa City possibly winning this competition. They ended up in fourth place, which is no slouch because, I mean, Pella, El Paso, and Prairie are three fantastic choirs. And so there is no shame in taking fourth at this competition. But with us kind of seeing them so high, I'm going to toss this over to you, Will. Where do you think Iowa City goes from here?
Yeah, that is just a great question, because yes, you are correct, and you can name names. I was talking a lot about Iowa City last week.
I was too. I had them first, so we're all good.
And saying that they could potentially win that competition, whatever. The literal short-term answer of where does Iowa City High go from here is Linmar. That's where they're going next weekend. Mm-hmm. After that, we've got Anamosa, Waukee Northwest, and a trip to Wisconsin at Monona Grove to round out their season in the middle of February. Linmar is going to be tough for them. I'm not going to lie. We're going to talk about Linmar later. And Linmar is going to be a competition where if you don't have your show in like prime form, like you're going to pay for it on the score sheet and on the placement record. Going after that, they have Anamosa on February 1st. That one's not going to be an easy one either. They see Pella again there. They see Xavier there. They see Marion, which is always a competent 3A program. They see Dallas Center Grimes, who we were just talking about. And Waukee Northwest, that's not going to be a slouch for competition either. They'll see Ankeny Centennial there. Honestly, if I'm looking at Iowa City, I'm already looking at a trip to Wisconsin as being like, okay, we can finally break free the demons. Or I'm looking at Linmar and Anamosa right in front of me and saying, okay, we lost to these Squires at the start of our season. We're going to make sure that we don't lose to them again later on in the season. So I think that those are kind of the two routes that Iowa City High can go from here. I still think that this is a group that has a ton of potential. This is a group that came super close to Davenport Central last year. This is a group that cleaned house on multiple occasions last year. So I still have a lot of faith in them. But really the groups that I want to talk about here are the 3A groups. I think that there are plenty of people, and deservedly so, who love their top-end show choir, who love the nationally known groups that everyone sees each year. To me, some of my favorite competitions are the ones where the smaller groups get to shine. I think that Pella and North Polk both put in a really good word for the strength of the small school scene in Iowa. Pella outpacing Iowa City High, which is a very respectable 4A program. North Polk outpacing multiple 4A programs on their way to a finals berth as well. This is the start of North Polk's third competition season. Okay, they competed in 23, competed in 24, competing in 25. And this was a competition with several other groups that could have made finals. Cedar Rapids Jefferson, a 4A program, missed. I don't know if the prep groups were eligible to make finals here. If they were, they definitely would have put up a fight as well. So I really look forward to seeing where both Pella and North Polk are going to be going and what they're going to be doing for the rest of their season as well. We will now jump over to the competition that Prairie was originally scheduled to attend. That is the Onalaska Show Choir Classic in Wisconsin. The results of this one: Omaha West Side, Amazing Technicolor Show Choir, Best Vocals, Best Choreography, Best Band, and first place. Second place, La Crosse River City Revolution. Third place, Sauk Prairie Executive Session. Fourth place, Monona Grove Silver Connection. Fifth place, Milton Correlation. And sixth place, Toma Limited Edition. I'm going to start on this one because I am the resident Wisconsinite on this podcast. And I feel like I could just talk about every group who made finals and then some groups who didn't make finals and what it means for each of their seasons individually. I'll leave the talking about the winner to someone else because that's not from my state. But a few groups that I want to touch on briefly here. Monona Grove, this is a group that actually improved in finals. They were fifth in prelims. They were fourth in finals. Monona Grove had made their money in previous seasons as being a group that started hot and maybe trailed off a little bit towards the end of the season. That was actually the opposite of what happened last year. They started pretty slow and then finished hot. It's really encouraging to me that Monona Grove is starting strong this year, because if they can keep that tendency from last year, finishing strong as well, it'll be a really strong overall season for Monona Grove. And that's the kind of season that program has been needing for a few years now. Milton is another group that I've been quietly watching over this offseason and thinking to myself, this is a group where the spidey sense is tingling that this is going to be a year that Milton is going to make a lot of people and a lot of supporters of that program really happy with how they do. Abby Landrum, I think, is absolutely a rock star director in the making in her second season at the head of that varsity group Correlation. And Toma Limited Edition, a lot of people, I think maybe were expecting them to place a little higher up on the charts after winning 4 times last year. This is still the first time they've made finals in program history at Onalaska. It's traditionally been a very hard competition. And Toma also, they started the season a little slow last year. And so I think the flip side of that coin is that it shows that it's a program where the show grows a lot throughout the season. It's a program where the show evolves throughout the season. The same thing goes for a couple groups that didn't make finals. Holman, North St. Paul, which is very Wisconsin adjacent group. Janesville, Craig, even I'll throw that in there. Those are some shows that definitely progress and grow into themselves throughout the season. So with that, my rant is done. I will open it up to either one of you to find some point that I did not talk about.
Yeah, basically, I'm going to just touch on the points you did talk about. I feel like this is a competition where everyone deserves a flower. And if you know what that means, it's like, give them their flowers. Dorian Johnson, you are getting your flower at every competition you go to. That's just how it's going to be. But you get a flower. Lacrosse, you get a flower. Sauk Prairie, you're getting a flower. Winona Grove, Milton, you're getting a flower. Now, Toma is the only one that might not get a flower. But again, it's so early in the season. I just know that they might be hard on themselves, especially after a really good season. I think people need to take a step back and realize that they're still a growing program and that shows grow. They really do. I didn't see their show, but I see that the show might be Disney Princesses. Something was, I don't know. I saw people in like not little ball gowns, but ball gowns, and it kind of looked like Rapunzel or something, somewhat so forth. That's going to be a cute show, and it's definitely going to grow over the course of the season. I don't think Toma won their first time out last year either. So, exactly. So now for Holman, North St. Paul, I know those are finals groups. They're right there on the cusp, like you said. And yeah, that's kind of what my takeaway is from this competition at Onalaska. A lot of choirs in Wisconsin deserve their flowers after this weekend.
Ava, anything else you'd like to add in?
I am not as well versed in the Wisconsin world of show choir as you guys are, but I just think it's so great with lacrosse's combined show choir. I think that they are making a big name for themselves right off the bat, which is good because I know that lots of people didn't really know what to expect from them with combining programs and not really knowing what their show was going to look like, but I think it's really great that they were able to achieve first runner-up in such a big competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all those directors out there who are scared of competing early, the two groups at this competition who competed last weekend finished second and third. So perhaps competing early does pay dividends. Of course, if your school's on winter break still or whatever, nothing you can do about that. But moving on to South Dakota, we have the Sioux Falls Jefferson Cavalier Classic. The results of this one: Lincoln Southwest Resonance Grand Champion, Best Vocals, Best Choreography, and Best Band. Waukee Northwest EOS first runner-up, Lewis Central Corporation. Second runner-up, Waconia Power Company. Third runner-up, Aberdeen Central Eagle Express. Fourth runner-up, Sioux Falls Washington Classic Connection. Fifth runner-up, Ethan, I know you have self-professed short-term memory loss, but I really hope you don't forget talking about Lincoln Southwest on this very show in January of last year.
I don't have long-term memory loss, Will. I don't have long-term. So this is a choir that is on a roll. We were so lucky to see them, Will. I mean, just one of those one-of-a-kind shows that you'll never see again last year. I bet the show is the exact same. They came out swinging. And a bunch of people might not have thought they could do it, especially right out the gate. So Waukee Northwest can sing their butts off, and their showmanship is one of a kind. Lewis Central, big surprise here to many. I definitely did not have them up in third podium. No way did I think Lewis Central. I'm going to be honest. I did not think Lewis Central could get podium here at a competition like this. They beat amazing groups in Waconia, Aberdeen Central, and Sioux Falls, Washington, among others. So, yeah, they deserve their flowers too. This was an amazing competition. I feel like these placements, if you look down later in the line, might not happen if you ran this competition back again. Who knows? But if you're Lincoln Southwest, you got to be riding high right now. You got to be riding high.
Absolutely. Ava, I want to go back to the Iowa choirs that finished second and third at this competition, Waukee Northwest and Lewis Central. Thoughts on either of those?
Yeah, I am equally as surprised about Lewis Central placing third, especially over a group like Waconia, who always just comes out swinging and has so much energy and is used to competing so early in the season, and you see such great things for them. So kudos to them. I know that last season they had their highs and they had their lows, and they missed finals a couple times, but to place this highly at a competition like this, I think is great. You never really know what to expect when you throw a bunch of schools from different states all in one competition. So I didn't know much about Lincoln Southwest. I watched their show and I loved it. And obviously I'm a big Waukee Northwest fan. I love what they do over there, but I think that their time is coming and they'll continue to refine their show and just make it even better than it was on Saturday. And I'm excited to see what happens with Waukee Northwest.
Yeah, I would like to throw in a third flower for Lewis Central. I'm going to beat a dead horse here. I picked Lewis Central to make finals. People may not know this, but at their first competition last year, they actually took best choreography and finished fifth. So we certainly had records of early season promise from Lewis Central. And is the holiday show the most original show that has ever graced a show choir stage? No. Was it perhaps a good compliment to the Grinch show that was going on from Lincoln Southwest? Yeah, perhaps it was, and I don't think that that's any knock. Like, you don't know what the other people's shows are going to be when you sign up for this competition in March, but additionally, like the local South Dakota choirs that were here just totally got shuffled out of the mix. And I find that super surprising because I think that usually the South Dakota groups do a pretty good job of defending their home territory. And obviously you can't control what the other choirs put on stage, right? But to see Aberdeen leading the South Dakota choirs, I don't think was a shock. But to see Aberdeen in fifth was perhaps a little bit of a shock. The fact that the next South Dakota choir after them was Sioux Falls, Washington, I think did surprise a lot of people. I think the kind of bubbling sentiment heading into the year is that Sioux Falls Roosevelt was going to come to play this year, especially coming off of a super hot end of the season last year. But I feel like even going back to before the pandemic, as soon as you think that you have Sioux Falls figured out, someone just goes on top of everybody else. And then you're just back to square one. O'Gorman was not at this competition. I think that they would have been a pretty outside bet to make finals, but it still would have been interesting to get a direct comparison to them as well. So the South Dakota scene proper does not reconvene until February 1st at Sioux Falls Roosevelt. So it'll be a couple weeks here of some of these choirs splitting up, going to different Nebraska events, going to different Iowa events before coming back in 2 weeks' time. Shows can change a lot, and so it'll be interesting to see where the local South Dakota power dynamics play out when they resume. One more quick shout out to the Maryville Spoofhound Spectacular. This was not a comp of the week, but it was kicking off the Missouri season. It was the earliest Missouri competition since 2016, like we discussed on the podcast last week, I should say. At that competition, Papillion La Vista Free Spirit from the Omaha area Cleaning House Vocals Choreography Band, Scott Catholic Vivace, also from the Omaha area, taking second place. Papio Monarchy taking third place. That's their men's group. And Oak Park from Kansas City was the lone Missouri group in finals. Only 4 finalists at that competition. And Oak Park was 4th best of the locals there. We do have one comment, and it says, what about Gretna Revolution this year? I will take a quick sidetrack to talk about Gretna for a hot second. Obviously an unbelievable show last year out of Gretna. I consider myself insanely lucky to see them in person last year at Totino. They have a show based off of The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost this year, The Road Less Taken. So I think that it may not be like a heartstring tugger. It very much has that potential based off that theme. But I think that with the same creative team there, you still have Caitlin Wallace there, you still have Stephen Todd there, you still have Dakota Matthew there. I think that Gretna is going to be locked and loaded. Once again, Ethan Gretna will see Lincoln East on 4 separate occasions this year. Does Gretna get themselves in a little bit of a rivalry this year?
Oh, I think they definitely will. It's just natural. It just happens over time. The more you see a group, the more it is. Or you just slowly become like best friends. Like, oh my gosh, hey, I see you again. Hey, like we'll get you this time, or how it goes. I've been lucky enough to be in a situation like that. I've gone up against, I believe, Troy Buchanan 4 times in the season before. And it's everywhere we go, no matter if it's Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, they were there. And it's kind of that fun little joke, well, we know our best friends are going to be here. But yeah, you always want to beat that group. I mean, it is what it is. Your best friends, you want to beat your best friends in the end. You want to have that over their head a tad bit. But yeah, a little rivalry probably will settle in with Gretna and Lincoln East.
Absolutely. Ava, as an Iowan, did Gretna make any noise in Iowa this past season?
I didn't hear much about them. In the Iowa scene, I did follow the Nebraska scene a little bit, and I know that they had a spectacular season. They went undefeated, and in a big consolidated state like Nebraska, where everyone's kind of in the same spot and always competing against each other, that's really hard to do. So kudos to them. I am really intrigued to see what they pull out this season with a different group of people. I've heard chirps that they have graduated out a lot of good seniors, so that might hurt them a little bit in the beginning as they kind of get into that new groove with a new group of people, but I am just excited to follow along them.
Yes, I do believe that last year's featured soloist Cameron Bothwell did graduate, but of course, there is plenty of talent in the reserves for Gretna. Their prep show Evolution had a great chess-themed show last year as well. We do have one more comment, preview of Linmar Supernova. We're going to get there. Hang in with us for about 15 more minutes, and we're going to get there. We're going to dive all the way into Linmar Supernova. And we're actually going to talk about Iowa right now. You know, Iowa had two competitions last weekend, and they have another two big ones coming up this weekend in Linmar and Waukee. And this is why we brought Ava in. Ethan and I. Ethan, maybe you've competed in Iowa before, maybe not. No.
For Madison.
For Madison, yeah, or Central
Yes.
League at one time, yeah. But I never competed in Iowa. I have never been to a show choir competition in Iowa. I've seen shows from maybe like 3 Iowa show choirs in person. So we brought Ava in. She's super knowledgeable about Iowa. And a lot of the talk so far, at least in this episode, it has been about choirs from in and around the Des Moines area. So I think Ethan and I just want to lay it out on the table for you. The Des Moines area flush with contenders, both the Yankees, both the Waukees, Johnston, Urbandale, the list goes on. Who are a couple of the big groups from the Des Moines area that you are looking at so far this season?
I think that Waukee will continue to do big things this season. Under new direction, it's kind of hard to know what to expect, but obviously they came out swinging at their first competition. And so I think that they're going to continue to be really great. They have some big competitions coming up, but I think that they'll be able to hold their own. I thought their show was spectacular last weekend. I already said that, but I just think that they did really cool things. I also know we've talked about Indianola already, but I want to give another shout out to them. I feel like they are smaller for a school, so it's kind of hard to make a name for yourself if you're not like a big, like they're a little bit outside of Des Moines, so it's kind of hard to get the attention away from some of the other schools, but I do think that they'll be able to hold their own at Waukee next weekend against some of those really big groups and then see success later on in the season as they continue to refine their show and just make it better. I thought their show was super entertaining. I thought their vocals took a really big step up from last season, and obviously with the best choreography win right off the bat, I really think that they're going to be really great.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton else. If the vocals take a big step up and you're already winning best choreography at the start of the season, there's, already a phenomenal base there. Kind of flipping over towards the eastern side of the state, I guess anywhere from Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Davenport, the surrounding areas. Who are a couple of the groups that you want to point to and say these groups have the potential to be really disruptive this year?
Yeah, I thought Iowa City High had a very good show right off the bat. I know that they didn't place as high as we were expecting them to, but that's one set of judges on one certain day. So I really think that they have an exceptional show and that they can continue to make it better and make some noise this season. I know that they're a group that kind of slides under the radar. I didn't know much about them until recently, but I'm really excited to see what they do. And also Cedar Rapids Kennedy, I've talked about them a few times throughout Homeroom Show Choir, but adding Lexi Robson to their already growing program, I think is going to do really great things for them. And Lexi just has a certain something. I don't really know how to explain it, but I know that Iowa judges really like her and that like she does really well in Iowa. And so I'm really excited to see her with the things that already make Cedar Rapids Kennedy unique with their storytelling and their like ability to perform at an exceptional level. They haven't competed yet, but I have a feeling that they're going to do good.
Awesome. Ethan, any thoughts that you want to add in about what you think about Iowa so far this season?
No, I think that was a great question by you, Will, especially on the eastern side, because that's the side I care about. Maybe I don't want to say the most, but it's the closest to me, right? The Davenports are just a short little drive away from us, so I've never been able to catch a show. Always slips through my fingers every now and then to see a Davenport Central show or any of the Davenports. Actually, that's a lie. I feel like I might have seen them. Now that I think of it, I might have seen them at a Naperville or some sort of competition. Now, which Davenport, I don't know. They were really good, though. I really enjoyed their show. But yeah, I'm excited for Iowa. There's so many storylines with Iowa this year. I think it is possibly the best circuit or region in the country when it comes to show choir. There's just so many solid choirs. Always one I want to keep my eye on. I need to get over to an Iowa competition soon, and one of these massive ones where all of them are there. So yeah, I'm super excited to see how Iowa turns out this year. And luckily this year, I will actually catch one. Cross my fingers. I'll hopefully catch Linmar this season. But yeah, super excited for Iowa and to see where they go.
Well, if you're going to catch one Iowa show, Linmar is probably the Iowa show to catch, right? We talked a little bit earlier when we were discussing the Muscatine results about some of the smaller schools. So in Iowa, for those who are unfamiliar, the divisions, 4A is the largest schools in the state, and then it goes 3A and 2A and 1A. And obviously the 4A groups from the biggest schools have the biggest choirs most of the time, take most of the top placements. But I think it's very important to recognize some of those smaller schools as well. So I'll toss it to Ava in just a second, but just a couple of the ones that I've looked at and been able to see myself. I think the first one that comes to mind is Benton Community Celebration Co. I was lucky enough to see their show at Waukee in 2023. That was their money-themed show. It was just one of the funnest shows that I've seen in a long, long time. You know, there are shows that are cute and there are shows that tug your heartstrings, but it was a great show that was fun and that was technically sound. John Hayden has been at Benton for, I think close to 30 years at this point, just one county over from Cedar Rapids. They have been pretty much as close to a deadly consistent 3A choir as you've ever gotten in Iowa. They've just been kind of that standard bearer. Clinton came to their competition one year, you know, and I think regardless of how you're doing on stage as a program, when you manage to get Clinton to come to your competition, I think you've made it. Another one that I just want to talk about is Van Meter. Van Meter is not even a 3A school. Van Meter is a 2A school. And I know that they don't compete a ton, maybe only 3 to 4 times a year, and they're a little bit streaky. But they made a ton of noise at North Polk last year in North Polk's small mixed finals. And I'm super excited to see how they do this year. And then one more that I want to point out. We haven't really talked about Western Iowa at all. That's a little bit of a something because it's just a lot of small schools besides your Council Bluffs schools. And one of the best ones, I think, is Emmitsburg, tucked way up north in like one of the northernmost counties in Iowa. High Voltage has been going for a long time, and I think they have some opportunities to make some noise this year. Ava, who are a couple of your favorite small schools in Iowa?
Yeah, so staying in the western part of the state, I feel like we haven't hit that much, and they still have a lot of things going on there. I have really been paying attention to Bishop Heelan in the past couple of years. They had a great season in 2024. They swept at Westwood, and for as small of a school they are, I think it's really great that they're able to have 3 choirs that are consistently going strong. They have a mixed varsity, and then they have a treble and a bass group, and all 3 of them are doing super great in their respective categories. And then the other one that I really have been paying attention to is Fort Madison, and I'm not sure where in the state that's located exactly. I know I've seen them in a couple places. They were at North Polk last year, but they had 2 really good grand championships under their belt, and they made finals at every competition, and they just had a really solid 2024 season. So I can imagine that we can expect the same from them in 2025.
Absolutely. I think I have been to Fort Madison. Ethan, I think, has driven through Fort Madison at one point in time on his way to Central Lee, perhaps.
No,
Fort Madison.
Perform there, Will.
I thought. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. So I guess in a weird stroke of luck, both Ethan and I have been to Fort Madison. It's tucked on the far southeastern corner of Iowa, just north of Keokuk, and famous for a $3 toll bridge. For the privilege to enter the great state of Illinois, because the railroad owns the bridge over the Mississippi River. So If you learn one thing from this podcast, you now know that Fort Madison has a toll bridge over the Mississippi River. We do have a comment. Any thoughts on Chesterton and the Sandpipers coming up these next few weeks? Chesterton in a little bit of a mix-up for most other Indiana groups that starting their season this week. They'll be at Milton in southeastern Wisconsin. They'll be at Sauk Prairie, also in southern Wisconsin next week. And then that'll be the last time they compete before they host on February 15th. So we've got 2 early season Wisconsin appearances for Chesterton. They'll face a stout opponent in Troy Buchanan this week. And perhaps, depending on how that competition goes, I think Sauk Prairie would be a chance for Chesterton to really shine. We are now going to move into the comps of the week. And we have a lot on our plates this week. I did a recheck of my count, and I believe that we have 16 competitions going on this weekend. And of those, only 4 can be comps of the week. So a really hard cut, but that means that we have only the best fields of show choir groups, then the comps of the week segment. And we will start off in Ohio. Ohio is something that I don't think has come up on the podcast so far at all this season, Ethan. And we have a dandy with the Beaver Creek Classic in the large mixed division. We have Loveland by request, Noblesville NHS Singers coming over from Indiana, Olentangy Keynotes, Piqua the Company, Solon Music in Motion, Grove City Touch of Class, Lebanon Singers, and Taze Valley Prominent Rendition. In the small mixed division, South Dearborn opening night, Benjamin Logan standing ovation, West Jessamine duly noted, and the Elgin Energizers. Smaller single gender field, but a very good one as well. Loveland, Noblesville, Olentangy, and Grove City will all have their girls groups going against each other. Ethan, we have struggled to say Piqua. We have struggled to say Solon. We have talked a lot about some of these other Ohio groups. Loveland, Olentangy, Grove City, we talked about in our first episode of the year. It is kind of just, it feels like one of those events that's going to sort itself out at the top end.
Yeah, this is tough, Will. This is tough. I mean, maybe a few years ago, you know who the certified winner was. This year, I have no clue. I do not feel like I'm the right person to even think about who might win this competition. All these groups have had spotlights on them last year at some point. Either it'd be a top placement or they steal a caption away from somebody really good. I know Olentangy was, I believe it was last year, where they're at the top of many competitions to start the year, and then they kind of faltered back down a little bit, but they start off hot. I mean, the past year, that's what the sample size is. Solon is a choir that's been on a lot of people's radar lately. Pick was always on, and I feel like people are kind of forgetting about Grove City on the back end a little bit. That's a choir that can always compete and always has elegant shows. I don't know. I guess I just got to rip the Band-Aid off. I think something we don't know is going to happen. I'm going to go with the Indiana choir at the 1. Why not? I could see this going so many different ways, but I'm going to go Noblesville. I'm going to go Loveland. They're still such a strong choir. I believe in them. I know they've had some changes in recent history, so I still think they're a really strong choir. I'm going to put them in the 2. This is where it gets funky for me. I mean, it's already funky. It's already ruined. But I think, like these are all so good choirs. I think I'm going to have to put Solon in the 3. I think something funky is going to happen. Olentangy is going to place really high in a certain category. I'm going to put them in the 4. I'm going to – and then I'm going to go Piqua and then Grove City to round it out. I'm done talking because my analysis on this is terrible. Ava, do you have any thoughts on this competition?
I do not have much to say for this competition because, like some of the other states, I don't know much about Ohio. It's a little bit far out for me, but I don't even think I want to make a prediction because these are all just kind of schools to me. I haven't seen much of these programs, but I definitely will be following along just to kind of see what happens because it does sound like a competition where anything could happen.
Yeah, I think the one saving grace for this competition is that there are 6 final spots, and at least heading into it, we could be totally wrong, but at least heading into it, we feel like there's a pretty solid cut between the top 6 groups and everybody else of this competition. I know that in Ohio, it's definitely not uncommon for some of these women's groups to make finals. I just don't think that's going to happen here. I think that we have too many good large mixed groups that are here and that are going to make finals and slice and dice within finals. We make our predictions as to what the final results are going to be. I would, if I was a betting man, and I'm not a betting man because this is a podcast aimed at minors. And if you are not a minor and you have a problem, please call the hotline. But if I was a betting man, I would say that the placements would change a lot in between prelims and finals because you're getting your critique. You're doing that second run of your show. It's the first time out for everyone this year. And a lot changes in between your first and second run of the show. So I would say that if we get prelim results from this competition, they're going to vary from what the final results are. The interesting thing about this is that Loveland actually enters this as the defending champion over Noblesville. And Noblesville went on to make finals at Show Choir Nationals at the end of the season. So I think that just speaks to the testament of competition that this event has. The fact that we're pitting those two groups and we're saying, well, Loveland might be fourth here, As for this, I think, Ethan, I'm going to take your tactic and I'm just going to shut up and make prediction. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. I'll go Loveland, Solon, Piqua, Grove City, Noblesville at the 5. So your winner is my 5th place group.
Yep, love
and
that.
Olentangy at the 6th. I get what you're saying, Ethan, about Olentangy just scoring really high in one category. They actually took best vocals off of Marysville at somewhere last year, Winfield maybe, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly not unheard of. In fact, it's perhaps common for Olentangy to score really high in one category. I just think that you're going to need to score high in every category to place well here. And eventually, like, some group is just going to fall to the bottom of finals, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm really hesitant to say that this is the comp of the year for Ohio because this is literally the first one. But I think just off the top of my head, I think really the only 3 true contenders are going to be this and Fairfield. And I would say the third one is probably going to be Ross because Ross is going to be Loveland, Marysville, Fairfield. But even that's not even going to be as deep. So we're perhaps seeing the peak of Ohio Show Choir right away at the beginning of the season. We're going to run all the way over to Nebraska now, the Gretna Primetime event. This is one of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different competitions in Nebraska this weekend. We have Omaha Burke, we have Gretna, we have Ralston, and we have Lincoln High all hosting. So I just think that's nuts that the start of the season kind of compacted because last year, I believe 3 of these comps, I believe Gretna, Lincoln High, and Ralston were all one weekend earlier. I believe they were all on the second weekend of January. Ralston got snowed out, and Gretna and Lincoln High both pushed to Monday. So it's interesting to see all 3 of those comps shuffle back. None of those programs were competing last weekend anywhere, so it's not like they pushed back because anyone was competing anywhere. But anyways, semantics aside, the lineup for this one, we've in the mixed division, Millard North Infinity, Elkhorn South Blackout, Papillion, La Vista South Titanium, Omaha South the Ambassadors, Hastings Riverside Company from Minnesota, Norris Gold, Gretna East Equinox, and Sioux Falls Roosevelt Executive Suite. A lot of these schools are bringing 3 choirs, to the competition. A lot of these schools, at the very least, are bringing a women's group as well. Marion Momentum will be in the women's division as well. And I look at this lineup and I see a bunch of groups who maybe had the limelight stolen from them a little bit in 2024. When we talk about Nebraska, at least, we talk about Millard North, Elkhorn South, and Papio South, and even Norris to an extent. I think that those are 4 groups who maybe took it on the chin a little bit last year. And just looking at the field, this is a prime event for each and every one of those choirs to kind of start the season off on the right foot. I'll open it up to the group, Ethan or Ava. Any one of those 4 groups or anyone else that kind of stands out as a group that can really make an impact with a solid showing here.
Yeah, I feel like a group that a lot of people might not know about from outside the region / the scene that can maybe do really well here is maybe Omaha South. Omaha South is one of the most traditional, most straightforward show choirs I have been able to see. Luckily, they came to Mount Zion a few years ago, and I was lucky to see them. But I feel like they're a choir that kind of falls under the radar when it comes to that Omaha region. But looking at this competition, I'm kind of surprised Papio Free Spirit is not coming to this competition, especially right after competing at Mayville.
Maryville. Yeah.
Mayville. Thank you. Yeah, coming in hot right off that win, using that momentum that some other choirs used this previous week, competing in Wisconsin that first week. Riding that momentum going into it.
They will be at Ralston, so they'll be maybe 15 miles away.
Oh, okay. Again, I always love those battles between Papio South and Papio, because you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens. But looking at this one, I feel like Hastings is just too good in the beginning of the year. So I'm going to go with a Hastings sweep to start off the season for them, get them on the right track. Papio South right after them. And then the 3-4 kind of varies for me. I know I just talked up Omaha South, but I think they're going to fall to 4. But that's still pretty good placement for them. I'm going to go Miller North in the 3, Elkhorn South in the 5, and Sioux Falls Roosevelt in the 6.
All right. Ava, out of this just tangle of choirs, what are you seeing?
I am seeing a very good opportunity for Papio South. I know that the Papio South, wow, that's a mouthful. I know that rivalry sometimes, like, you really never know what to expect between the two, but without Papio there, I think that they could do really well at this competition. I haven't ever seen them compete against Hastings. I've seen both the groups separately, but it's kind of hard to say, especially because Nebraska and Minnesota show choir kind of have their differences, and so it will be interesting to see what this panel of judges thinks about them and which group is able to come out on top, especially because they're both competing for the first time, I'm pretty sure. And so you don't really know what to expect the first time out the gate. It could be really, really surprisingly good, or there could be some hiccups, and it's really hard to say. But I kind of have a gut feeling about Hastings as grand champion as well. I'll put Papio second just because I feel like they've always been really solid. Miller North third. I think I'm going to put Elkhorn South in 4 just because, I don't know. And then Omaha South 5th, and I'm rooting for Sioux Falls Roosevelt to make finals and take that 6th place spot after not getting it last weekend.
All right. Well, here we go. I make a living as the takes guy on this podcast, and so here's one of my signature takes. Last year, Hastings was 3rd to start their season. Now, granted, that was a competition where they got best vocals, but Hastings was 3rd at their first competition last year, and that was 2 weeks later on into the season after they got snowed out. Maybe they weren't originally going to go to Sioux Falls Jefferson. Maybe they would have. I don't know. But anyways, Bloomington Kennedy last year, wild competition where Ankeny came out on top with choreo, Waconia second, no captions, Hastings 3rd, vocals and band. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that in the post show. Subscribe to our Patreon. That does not exist to get access to the post show. But the thing is, when you look at Hastings, they haven't traditionally started the season that strong. But when you look at everyone else, I just don't know if there's a standout group. I think if we were going into this at the start of last season, I would say Papio South hands down. And this could be like a very potent revenge tour for Papio South. I feel like rightly or wrongly, a lot of people are kind of sleeping on them right now. So I would agree that kind of falls into the 1-2. But when we look at a lot of these other groups, Miller North, they've got a busy season ahead of them. They'll be at Chesterton. Omaha South is coming off winning their first ever competition at the end of the year last year. Elkhorn South is a very competent program as well. Norse is a program that has made a lot of noise. I feel like they're a little bit streaky, but when they're on. Gretna East is a choir that has a new director this year, and they're moving up from the small school division to the large school division. They're a total X factor as well. Sioux Falls Roosevelt missed finals last week. Is this the week that they make finals? Again, this is one of those competitions kind of in the same vein as Beaver Creek, where I feel like, okay, at least maybe here I have like the top 2, but then everyone else, I just kind of throw them under a blanket and run. So I will take Hastings and choreo here. And then I will take Papio South and vocals at the 2. At the 3 spot, I will take Millard North. At the 4, Elkhorn South. At the 5, Omaha South. And for the 6, I will take Gimme Norse. Gimme Norse at the 6. And who does that leave on the outside looking in? I believe for me, that leaves Norris, Gretna, or that leaves Gretna East and Sioux Falls Roosevelt on the outside of finals. That'd be tough for Sioux Falls Roosevelt 2 weeks in a row, not missing finals. Couldn't tell you the last time that they missed 2 finals in a row. It's one of those prove it weeks. But I think even if you land on the outside of finals here, whoever does, that the 6 groups who made it definitely earned their spots there. We will now move all the way back to Iowa. We'll tie a bow on this Iowa-themed episode with 2 Iowa competitions. The first one is the Linmar Supernova in the mixed division here. Cedar Rapids Jefferson Westside Delegation, Cedar Rapids Kennedy Happiness Inc., Cedar Rapids Washington Momentum, Prairie the Ambassadors, Johnston Innovation, Waukee Northwest EOS, and Iowa City High 4th Avenue Jazz Company. Same deal as Gretna. A lot of these schools bringing 2, maybe 3 groups to this competition. No groups in 3A or any prep-only schools or women's-only schools or whatnot. This is the pretty much official Cedar Rapids kickoff here. I mean, we're missing Xavier, and obviously Linmar doesn't compete, and Marion, which is a 3A program from the area, is not there. But you have all 3 of the city Cedar Rapids schools. You have Prairie there as well. So you have 4 really good schools from the immediate area. You have Johnston and Waukee Northwest coming in from Des Moines. You have Iowa City making the trek up I-380. Ava, based off of who we've seen compete so far this year, we have Waukee Northwest competing so far this year, as well as Cedar Rapids Washington. That was another second-place group last week. Iowa City High and Cedar Rapids Jefferson, also with previous experience so far this season. How do you see this shaking out?
I definitely think that this is a very interesting way to start out the season, because you have groups that typically do really well in Des Moines and groups that typically do really well in Eastern Iowa and Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. And so it can be kind of hard to say exactly what's going to happen, but I know that a storyline we've been talking about a little bit is between Waukee Northwest and Johnston. I covered that a little bit in the Iowa season preview, because that's the first time that these groups are going to be competing against each other, and Johnston is seen as like a top traditional program, and Waukee Northwest has done some really great things in the more theatrical story show sense. And I have heard that Johnston has a little bit more of a story show. However, it will be interesting to see how those 2 shake out in the two times that they see each other this season. I think Iowa City and Prairie are going to have another jab at each other. And even though they were far apart last week at Muscatine, I think that they'll be closer together in the rankings this week. I just have a feeling they both are super solid and are going to continue to get better as the season goes on. And then between Jefferson and Kennedy and Washington, it's hard to say, but I think that I think EOS is going to take it. I don't know enough to predict captions. I have a feeling that after a week getting second to a super solid group, they're going to go back, make some really good revisions, take the judges' feedback, and they're going to come out swinging, because they really are hungry for that win. I think Johnston's going to take second right behind them. I think we might see a switcheroo between daytimes and finals. It'll be hard to say I don't know if we'll get those during daytimes, but we'll see. I think I'm going to put Prairie in third. They came out with a bang last weekend at Muscatine, and I think that they're going to be riding that high. It's not going to be easy for them, I think, but I think that they're going to continue to do really well. I'm going to put Iowa City High in 4th. I really enjoyed their show last weekend. Kennedy in 5th. They are a typical finals contender, but sometimes they just struggle up to make it to the podium. But I think for their first time out, they're going to see the final stage. And then I think I can see Johnston Synergy making finals at this competition. I know that we only touched on the mixed varsity groups, but Johnston Synergy consistently makes finals. They are really, really good. They are almost mistaken varsity group just because they consistently do so well, and I really think that they might beat out some varsity groups first thing in the season.
Yeah, definitely would not be unheard of for Johnston Synergy to play spoiler to some varsity groups. Ethan, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a differing angle?
No, yeah, I had some of the same thoughts as Ava here. I think there's 3 final caliber groups here that I think, at least in my mind, that are going to make finals that have competed before. And that's dangerous. Like we've said it multiple times over the course of this podcast, having that first competition jitters out of the way is a huge plus. Plus the feedback, as Ava said, is immense. It's going to change a lot in their show. And plus, as they grow, they're going to feel more confident with it, of course. And then you have the chip on your shoulder, the way to look at it. Waukee Northwest might have a chip on their shoulder. They were very capable of winning that competition last weekend, and they didn't. They placed second. So Perry coming off a huge win. They're a choir that seems to be growing this season. I've heard a lot of good things about their show from multiple people. So they're a choir that could play spoiler here too a little bit. I think that they're definitely podium. And then Iowa City Jazz Company, who competed before, like we said, didn't get the placement that they probably wanted, but a group that can definitely hang with everyone else. I wish at the time of this podcast we knew who the judging panel was, because I feel like it's one of those competitions that if you knew who the judges were, you can get a little better sense of what's going on. And who knows, maybe a judge that saw these three choirs at previous competitions earlier this year are coming back, because that definitely makes a difference in seeing their improvement firsthand. But just looking at the names on the list, I'm going to go Johnson at the 1. Super strong choir. I know that I believe they're the favorite to win it as of now, by the public, by the community. I'm going to go Waukee Northwest in the 2. I feel like they can definitely take a caption, but I feel like Johnson might move better and might be overall sound. But again, they haven't competed yet, so who really knows? Prairie in the 3. Again, very strong choir. Cedar Rapids Kitty in the 4. And then I have Iowa City Jazz Company hanging in at the 5th. And rounding out, I have Cedar Rapids, Washington. So I have Iowa City splitting the Cedar Rapids groups.
Yeah, I don't know how much else more I can say that hasn't been said yet. So I'll just roll through my predictions quick. I'll take Johnston at the 1, Waukee Northwest 2. I'm actually pretty high on Cedar Rapids Kennedy, a new choreography team, perhaps. I have them at the 3, Prairie at the 4, Cedar Rapids, Washington at the 5, and Iowa City High at the 6. I know Johnston Synergy is a good group. I just don't know if I see them making it to finals here. Moving over to Des Moines, we have the Waukee Star Struck. In the mixed division here, another banger of one as well. We have Urbandale, Valley, Indianola, Southeast Polk, Ankeny Centennial, Liberty, Norwalk, Dallas Center Grimes, and also Ankeny Centennial Vortex is going to be competing in the mixed division as well. Same story here in the prep and women's division. Most of these schools bring in, at the bare minimum, a prep group. I think there is Liberty is, I believe, the only one who's not bringing a mixed prep group. So tons of groups in the prep division as well here. Ava, these are a lot of Des Moines groups: Urbandale, Valley, Ankeny Centennial, Indianola, Dallas Center Grimes, Norwalk. What's the 4-1-1 on this?
I think that a lot of these top contenders, we're seeing them for the first time this season. So like we've said before, we don't really know exactly what to expect from them. They're going to do something surprising, or if they're going to start off their season a little bit slow. But Indianola, Dallas Center Grimes, Norwalk have all competed and all have that under their belt. So it'll be interesting to see how they hang with the kind of upper level 4A groups that haven't competed yet. Urbandale had a really good season last year. They beat Waukee Northwest in what some people consider to be an upset. So it'll be interesting to see what they do right off the bat. Valley, Ankeny Centennial, and even Ankeny Centennial Vortex are all going to come out with a bang. Again, kind of hard to know what to expect, but they have all historically placed very, very well. And Waukee Star Struck is kind of a monster of a competition for these groups to start off at. It is every year. I know that Waukee Northwest and Johnston won't be there this year as they were last year, or the year before that. It got snowed out last year. But, yeah, this is kind of one of those competitions where crazy stuff always feels like something crazy always happens. So I really feel like I'm just throwing darts at a board with this prediction, but I'm really excited to see what happens. I'm going to put Urbandale in the 1, Centennial Spectrum in the 2, Valley taking third, rounding out the podium there. Indianola in fourth. They were very good last weekend, but some of these other groups, it can be kind of hard just to see what they'll be able to do against them. And I can imagine this is very close, so I think that fourth is no small feat at this competition. I think that any group that is able to take that is going to be great. I have Vortex in fifth. Vortex is always super high energy, does lots of great things. I think that having a varsity treble group in Iowa is great, and I hope I see more schools doing that just because they are a super powerful choir, and I'm excited to see what they do in their second season. And then I think I'm going to round out my prediction with Liberty in sixth, but also DCG, Southeast Polk, and Norwalk could all easily take that from Liberty.
That is a level of analysis that I absolutely could not have provided. So thank you for bailing Ethan and I out on that. Ethan, anything else you want to add? You want to take a stab at predictions, anything like that?
We do know a judging panel at this competition, so I'm kind of basing my prediction around that. Now, I know maybe the two choirs that I have in the top two spots are sort of similar in how they kind of do shows, like as story themes, so on and so forth. I know Urbandale always puts on a great show. They're one of the best groups, I think, with props. I was lucky enough to see one of their shows, and it was like the whole show was props, and it was insane how coordinated they were and how detailed that Urbandale is. However, I'm almost like in my head, just like first competition, rewinding the clock a little bit. I know Ankeny C last season kind of took a backseat to Ankeny, which, I mean, Ankeny Centennial was the choir in Ankeny for a long time. So in my head, I'm kind of rewinding the clock here a little bit just to make a different kind of prediction. So I'm going to go Ankeny C, Centennial, Spectrum at the 1. I'm going to go Urbandale in the 2. I don't know. I'm really high on Indianola. I think they take the 3 here. I wouldn't be surprised if they take best choreo. I mean, they've done it so many times now. It's almost like, can they just keep doing it against these awesome choirs? I have Valley in the 4, Ankeny, Vortex in the 5, and with them competing last weekend and doing pretty well, I have Dallas Center Grimes rounding out the field in finals. Will, what do you think?
Not much else I can say besides that this is the first crack of Southeast Polk versus Liberty for the season, and I think this is one of those rivalries where there's actually bad blood. I think there is some personal feelings on at least one side of this rivalry, if not both. And these are choirs that have been very close to each other performance-wise since the pandemic. And so it'll be very interesting because the ironic part is that they'll probably be fighting for at max one final spot. I don't really see a scenario in which both of these groups make finals. I mean, maybe like 1 in 10 shot that both of these groups make finals. So it'll be interesting to see if we hear anything about that. I don't know. You guys said great points about everything else, so that was just something that I wanted to point out. Man, this is so hard. Okay, I'll take Urbandale at the 1. I'll take Valley at the 2. I'll actually take Indianola at the 3. I'll go Ankeny Centennial Spectrum at the 4. Liberty at 5, and Ankeny Centennial Vortex at 6. And it kills me to leave Dallas Center Grimes out of finals. Okay, you know what? I'll put Dallas Center Grimes in. But it also kills me to leave Vortex out of finals. Yeah, just generally yucky feeling because there are way too many groups who should be making finals here. Yeah, okay. With that being said, we have taken up an hour and 4 minutes of your time if you've watched all the way through. We are so incredibly thankful for that. Technically, Waukee is not a comp of the week. It is up for the wild card comp of the week in the poll that will be dropping on both our Instagram and our Twitter pages or X pages tomorrow morning and running through Wednesday morning. So make sure to vote for your wildcard comp of the week preference, whether that will be Waukee or whether that will be something else. Make sure to check out @Homeroom SC on Instagram for that. Otherwise, you can catch us right back here next week, Monday night, for more show choir talk. Thank you, Ava, for coming on. It was a blast having you. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. You can catch all of the blog content on homeroomshowchoir.com. Make sure to check it. We will have stuff coming out every day up until Saturday. Season previews, competition previews. We didn't even mention the rankings at all this week. We have regional rankings coming out this week for a couple regions. So make sure if you're from Nebraska or Ohio, get over to the site and see those rankings when they come out. For Ethan and Ava, I am William. Have a great night and have a wonderful show choir Saturday this upcoming week.